So good morning. Good morning. Can you please stand up? I really loved this practice yesterday, so I would like to try it. So how many of you think the retrospective is just awesome? You can sit down. How many of you think it's just a good practice, so sit down? And the rest? You're still staying? You think it's horrible? Boo! Boo! Okay, well, retrospective is an awesome practice, at least to me. And I will try to explain why. What's wrong with that? Well, we are going without the slides. I can still see them here. So if you have a good eyes, I can show you my slides here. Well, think about the retrospective is that if you have a good eyes, there is a round table, and it's here. And my first experience with a retrospective was in US about 10 years ago, and I didn't like that practice much. I've been sitting at a table like that with my colleagues, and we've been talking about the things which we like, loud, and which we would like to improve. And I'm a bit introvert, so I don't like to speak public about my feelings, which they forced me. And these American colleagues, they've been kind of afraid to speak about their feelings because their manager was sitting there. So it was not really a nice thing. But what we did, we've got such a nice animal like that. And this nice friend understands what you are talking about. So we pass this round robin around and can talk to this animal and say, okay, well, you know, I like on last sprint this, and I think we should improve in that, and it understands. So it makes it a bit better. This is the real master of retrospective, by the way. Look at it. So it was not really anything good. And it happened to me that one of the very first sprints, we did a retrospective, and my colleague from Prague came to US together with me, and we've been sitting at the retrospective there, listening some boring stories about really how to reply to those two questions and say nothing. And then about the third person was my colleague, and he just said, well, you know, I think it's good that we finally have a lab and we can work together, because previously we've been sitting in these cubicles and don't interact at all. So that's what I like, and that's what I would like to keep. And then he said, well, you know, but there is something which I don't like much and I don't understand maybe, and one of them is the point estimation, which I just don't have a clue how to use. And I think we should all more cooperate, so how about to try the pair programming, and how about to do this, this, and that, because I don't like that behavior. And he was the first person who just speak up and say what he really feel. And that something very surprising happened. The rest of our colleagues, they just look kind of strange and say, okay, nothing happened really. So let's join him and let's tell what we really don't like. So from that time it changed a bit, and after some time we start like retrospective and we start using it. And then I came back to Prague and teach my Prague colleagues how to do the retrospective and what to do with it. And sometime later, I just realized that it's about looking into the mirror. At that time, we call it reflection meeting anyway. And if you try to look into the mirror to yourself, you most likely see a bit different picture than you have in your head. In your head, you are awesome. And in the mirror, you sometimes see that your hair is not really good enough, and maybe you have some problem with your dress or whatever. And so it's a good practice to look into the mirror and move the mirror to your team and see, okay, how I see all my different colleagues and what's really inside of those people. So looking into the mirror, you sometimes have a different idea about yourself and your colleagues than it reality is. And there is no single truth. It's just about the feelings. It's just about reflection. So that's a kind of thing. And then later on, I found out that there is a good framework which is good to follow doing the right retrospective. And it's about the facilitation. So every meeting you facilitate, the first step is to do a very short introduction. To explain to the people you are facilitate, okay, this is a retrospective, we do this, this, and that, and at the end, there is an outcome. So that's very important. It brings some kind of certainty to all the people who are listening to you, who came to the retrospective, and they might be kind of not feel comfortable, and so on. And if you happen to be doing the retrospective over the phone with your colleagues in India or America or whenever else, there is one activity which you should do. At the very first moment when the retrospective starts, after you explain the format, you just do the weather check. Kind of a check-in. I'm in. The retrospective has started. And the weather check is about that every one of you would just say, if you were a weather, which kind of weather you would be? And one of you would say, I'm a sunshine. There. And the other one would say, well, I'm a thunderstorm. I'm not happy enough. And the other one would say, well, I'm a mid-cloudy weather. And another one would say, I'm a morning fog. The nice thing is that everyone would speak up at the very beginning of the retrospective, and they would just mentally forget on all those things they brought to the retrospective. They are just in from that moment on. And the other thing good is that you pretty much understand that that person doesn't have a good day. So you might be a bit careful speaking with him. It doesn't say if it's personal or from work, so it doesn't really offend you. It's just easy to say, I'm a thunderstorm today. So be a little bit careful. So that's a good thing. Second step. After the introduction, which was really short, tiny stuff, nothing really important, generate ideas. And at the beginning, I was quite happy with this round table stuff, sending this round robin token thing, and listening to each other. I became quite good at moderating that event, so it worked for me. However, sometimes I've got a problem with some other teams that it was hard to follow, and it was kind of awkward for people to speak up, and so on and so on. And once, I've got a team which says, well, we are the best team in the company. We don't have any problems, so we don't need to do any retrospective. I said, well, okay, well, so you're a perfect team. You can't be really, such awesome. And I said, well, of course we have some tiny problems, but, we solve them right away. So there is no need to stop and do the retrospective. So I was thinking what to do with that team, and this is a framework which helped me a lot. So we draw on a big flip chart, and I asked the people, whenever something happened which you feel is interesting, just write a sticker and put it on top of that flip chart. And as days go, just create such a chart. So you all see what's going on, and we can talk about it at the end of the sprint. So which we did. And at the end of the sprint, I add those smiley faces, unknown smiley faces here, and let the people to vote. How do you feel when that thing happened? Very happy or not really? And we found out that it's really strange, because you would assume that if someone feels good, the others would feel good about it as well, but we found out that's not the case. So we've got something to discuss. And this board contained a lot of funny stuff, like Petru is playing the same song all over again and we don't like it. And then another card says, well, he changed the song, which is cool, we love it. So what I did, I just put those stickers and give it to the people and do some small contest, like whoever got the most stickers wins. There was no real prize, but it was fun. And finally, that team started to like retrospective. So that was kind of a good. And then the time goes on. And I've been a part of some Agile transformation group in a huge bank. And that Belgian guy who drives it, he said, well, we are running Scrum over this Agile transformation group. So we are doing daily stand-ups, we are having backlog, we are doing some groomings, and we are doing the retrospectives. And I said, yeah, I know the retrospectives. I'm quite curious which kind of animal they are going to have. But there was no animal, there was not round robin token or anything. They just used this kind of star. And what he said, well, you know, write a sticker and put it on one of these segments. So if you want to start with, if you want to do that part of thing a bit less or a bit more, or if you want to stop it even, or if you just want to continue with that. And please use a pen, the marker pen, I mean, so we can all read it. And make it 1 or 2 words, so it's easy to read for all of us. So we did. And at the end of that activity, I was like thinking, oh, that's really cool. Because it's do kind of a check-in activity as well. At the very beginning, you ask the people to do something. So they write a sticker. Then you ask them, well, can you please stand up once you're done? Go to the board, stick it here, and read it loud. Which was kind of a good. So every one of you has to stand up, do something, go there, read it. But it was kind of less personal and less difficult for the people to do so. So I tried the next day, and it was kind of a good. The team at my other client, they like it. And from that time, I've been using just this framework. But, you know, sometimes you find out it's still boring and it's still not enough. And so we've been thinking, okay, so let's use this. Because sometimes the testing problem, for example, repeats all over again and again and again. So we need some specific retrospective to talk just about the testing. And you can still draw the start, stop, continue, less and more thing all over it, but focus it on the testing, which helps. But it's still not enough. Sometimes the team were saying, well, we are bored with the retrospective. It was good at the beginning. Yeah, it's cool. We like it. But, you know, after some time, it's all the time the same things around, and we are not solving big problems anymore. So I've been thinking how to make it change and different, and how to involve a team. And the thing is creativity. So one of the concepts which you can read over the internet is to draw a boat. And still do the stickers, which involves the team, but you can identify the thing which stops you and put it into the anchors. The more deep, the more stopping. And you can identify the winds, which just helps you to move forward. Again, if you make it very far, over there, it means it's a very strong wind, so it helps you a lot. So it's a concept which brings creativity into the team, and which helps you to look at the things from different perspectives again. And I was afraid to use it at the beginning, but then I found out it's quite a good thing, but it doesn't stop here. It's about the creativity, so if you just use the boat all over again, it will not work. So the thing is that the next time I said, well, let's do it differently this time. And let's identify the things, what makes me smile during the last sprint, and put those cards here in the middle of the smiling face. Because I really would like to know what makes you happy. And then another thing is what makes you unhappy, or what would you like to improve or change or don't like. Put it outside of that smiling face. So what I'm saying, it doesn't even have to be complementary. We don't care about start, stop, continue, less and more. We don't care about what we like and want to continue with, and what we like to improve. It could be what makes me smile as one category, and the other one, well, let's talk about some changes. And once I've been preparing this presentation, I've been like thinking, okay, let's ask my clients if they have some pictures from their retrospectives. And I've got these 3 pictures which I would like to share with you. So this one is kind of usual, you would say, but still has these 2 faces there and there. And it's saying good and bad. But these 2 faces are kind of, they've been playing. And they enjoyed doing the retrospective. You see, it has some personality. So if you draw it, even if you do it this way, it just brings some energy into the team and help you to have more fun. So that's first picture. The second one is the boat, which I just drew. But you see, it's not just the boat. There is a captain over there, and there are some things here. So they try to make it personal and funny. But then I've got this picture. And the Scrum Master, she sent it to me. She said, well, it was drawn by a whole team. So what I just said when I came to the retrospective, I said, well, let's draw a sport car, a Ferrari. So here is a sign of Ferrari. I don't know if you see it, if you recognize it, but it's real Ferrari. And you can see that one wheel is blue, the second one is red. So it was really drawn by different team members. So they all came into that place and draw that car. And then she said, well, and at some point over time, one of our creatives said, well, we should draw a parachute, which prevents us from moving fast. And then at the end, someone drew that wall. Once we hit it, we are dead. And what I like on that concept is that I never really tell them, well, you should be creative and involve the whole team in drawing some picture in retrospective. We've been just talking about some basics of retrospective, and they invented it by themselves, and they've been having fun. They've been enjoying that. And that's a team which is really healthy, because they can having fun during the retrospective. They are all self-organizers to create even the content of that retrospective, the format. So let's go back to that thing. So part of the second step, generating the ideas. Sometimes it's happened to you that you have so many ideas from the team that it's very hard to make it kind of clear what we are going to talk about. So I always invited the team next to the board and say, well, look at those cards and think about how to group them, how to make them one single group with a label, so we can talk about the testing, and we can talk about the review, and we can talk about the product owner. And then another step is, again, all team next to the board and say, well, do the dot voting. So every one of you has 3 votes or 5 votes, depending on your choice. And you select which idea is the most important for you. Again, it's a team who decides so. It's not a Scrum Master anymore. It's a team who is deciding. And that's kind of a good thing. But the whole retrospective and all that facilitation stuff on that meeting is about extending the scope. So at the beginning, we just knew we are doing a retrospective and we should learn something, we should improve our processes. And then we extend the scope and we've got 5 ideas. And then out of those 5 ideas, we generated options, how to address those areas, how to improve them. So after all, in this picture, we have 16 options. So we really extended the scope. And of course, we have the most options from the idea which has the highest number of the votes. So it's the most important for the team. So we spent more time on that one. And what I realized that sometimes it's easy to generate the symptoms, but it's very hard to identify the root cause. So one of the things which I like, because it's nice fishbone stuff, draw, is not only ask what's wrong, what shall we improve, what are we going to do about that, but as well ask where is that happening, and who is responsible for that, and why is that happening, and when. All those questions will just help you to identify real options, what you are able to do with that. And you are not still selecting what exactly you will do the next sprint. You are just generating the options, so it's still extending the space. So the most common question is what else? And another format, which you all knew because it was the last ACE t-shirt, with 5 whys. So ask why 5 times in a row to understand the root cause. I don't have to explain that, I guess, here. So the next step, once you really understand the root cause, it's about the action items. And the previous steps were important, it's good, but you often hear teams which are saying, well, you know, retrospective, well, we talk about it, yeah, we complain a bit, how hard our life is, but there will be no action item at the end. We just, you know, have a nice talk, nice conversation, but that's not enough. The goal of a retrospective is to create concrete action items which are assigned to concrete people, team members, and they are able to finish those action items within the next sprint. You don't have to solve the huge area about non-functional product owner, for example, but you should address it. And there is one thing which is kind of team health meter. It just says how good your team is. And you can count it. So how many of your action items is going into the team? If it's half-half, we are not healthy enough. If it's like 95%, that's what you want to achieve. You want to have all your action items coming to the team. So you may want to say, we as a team want to have a different product owner. Well, but if you just say, well, someone should change the product owner role, nothing will happen usually. So what you may want to agree on is, I will go to the product owner and explain him how to change his behavior. That's the action item which is going into the team. And that's what healthy teams are doing. They are taking the responsibility and doing a change. And there is another thing which kind of say if you are a healthy team or not. And there are lots of studies that successful teams, despite if they are agile or not, they are having 4 positive things to every 1 negative. 4 positive to 1 negative. So you have to kind of help the positivity to grow and make it visual. So one of the things is to do the positivity wall. And if we like something, we just put a sticker and write it here or write it on the flip chart. We have no bugs, we have good sprint results. Well, we just have fun. Or went for beer on Friday, which was cool. Or I've been on holiday. If you see it, it just increases the rate of success of the whole team. So make it visual. And finally, we've been talking about starting. And it's time to do the closing, so it's an integral part of your retrospective. At the end, you should say, well, there's the action items, which we all decided to take into account, and we will deliver them during the next sprint. Very fast, but very important. And that was all about kind of functional teams, which are willing to speak. They might be afraid, so they might need some friend to listen, but they are talking at least. But sometimes you have teams which are not talking at all, they are afraid, or they don't trust each other. They don't trust their manager. They have personal problems with some other colleagues. They got fights in the past. So those teams are not willing to really say anything at the retrospective. So what you may do, just draw such a nice picture, stick it on the doors to the retrospective meeting, and ask the team to put a sticker at the personality which they feel to be. So first of them, over there is an explorer. This is a person who is really active. You want to have all team members as explorers, of course, that's the ultimate goal. They are going to the retrospective with a high energy, they are speaking loud, they are saying, well, that's cool, we will do this, and what about if we do that? Then you have a shopper. There's a person who is going to the retrospective with this cart thing, shopping cart, and saying like, well, retrospective, yeah, sometimes I learn something, but, well, in general, I don't expect much. They are more quiet, but it's still not too bad. They are quite easy to involve. So if you have a high energy, you can involve them, and they forget they just came with these low expectations. But then we have that nice person, and that person is saying, well, you know, it's better to be at the retrospective than at my work office, because I have rest. I can just, you know, sleep mentally. It's easy. I don't expect anything, and I'm not going to be involved. I'm just having rest. I'm on vacation. It's still not too bad. You can still get that person involved, on board. But then there is the last picture, it's a prisoner. So that's the people who are saying, well, I'm here at the retrospective because my manager said I have to go to the retrospective. I don't like to be here, I don't want to be here, I just hate it. All those meetings. And I don't want to speak up because I don't trust the other team members, for example. And if you happen to have the team full of prisoners, it's better to stop and say, well, we are not doing the retrospective anymore. Let's talk about us as a team. And what I usually use for that teams, which have personal problems and prisoners there, I just talk about them, well, if I were you, I would not like to be working in your team. So let's talk about what makes us team good. Let's talk about the values. So what do you think it's a good team, values? And they say something after some time. And what makes you flourish? What makes you awesome team? You, personally, here. And then we talk about what makes things difficult. So what are we going to do if there is something which is going wrong? And then accountability, what we really do, the action items. And that's a kind of a first retrospective to design partnership alliance. How are we going to work together and be together? And then the next time, it's changed their mind a bit, and we are able to do the regular retrospective. And to summarize it, it's about a change. So I use the retrospective format to make from individuals a team who is cooperating, sharing, and having fun. And the last thing, well, do you know that the frog is a very smart animal, right? So it can say no, accidentally. If you ask the frog to jump into the boiling water, it will say, no, 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 I'm not going to boil myself up. But if it accidentally happens that the frog is sitting in a pot which is cold, and you start hitting below it, it will never notice. So now, please stand up again. And how many of you just happen to be sitting in a boiling water without even realizing it? You can sit down. Well, I did. I've been working for a company, and I didn't like that job anymore, but I was just thinking, I like that company because 10 years ago, that was a great company. And I've been still working there. I should have jumped off and quit. And the retrospective helps me to jump off, you can sit down, to jump off the pot fast, so I am not boiled up. So think about that frog and do the personal retrospective often, because that's the most important thing. It can help a team, but it can help you as well. Otherwise, you will be boiled as the frog, because you haven't even noticed you should change. Okay? That's me, by the way. You can recognize the colorful hair. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much.